Now, because there is still a high risk of contracting the virus, you might still be afraid of going back to work and spending time around co-workers and customers. The best thing to do is remind yourself that there are precautions you can take to lessen your risks and, of course, follow safety protocols.
1 year into the pandemic, effects of the COVID-19 crisis are now visible and being felt across the continent. In fact, human resource experts say work as we once knew it has changed completely. Come, let me show you for instance. Hi, Shiro. So this is where I used to sit. And as you can see, it's been sealed off for about 9 months now since COVID, the first case of COVID was actually reported in the country. I definitely do miss sitting next to my colleagues and also just fun times chatting and also going through the pressure of meeting deadlines. And this is the case when you go around the office, you'll find quite a number of desks have been sealed off, and that's because most people are now working from home. And what's even interesting is that I just can't come to the office as I would in the past. I definitely have to get permission from my supervisor. And when you move around the office, you'll also see different signs warning people to stay 2 meters apart and also asking them to be very aware of areas that are most commonly touched or that have a lot of people coming to that particular place. So now the big question that actually companies have to deal with is, how do you continue with business as usual at the same time keep your employees safe? In an article featured in South Africa's Sunday Times, Dr. Rebaone Moshenyane says that you're highly exposed to the virus when returning to work, since you'll be interacting with colleagues who may have been to a super spreader event or areas that are COVID-19 hotspots.
We have these new strains as well, or the new variants rather, of the COVID-19 virus, which are more transmissible. Employers should have, before the return to work, should have had strict return to work plans for the employers to prevent the infection from entering the workplace, as well as preventing or reducing the spread of transmission inside the workplace as well.
So here are a few measures employers need to implement to protect their employees. Every staff member returning to work must be checked for COVID-19 symptoms before entering the workplace. Contacts of infected employees must be traced to avoid further spread of the disease. Adults with certain diseases and weakened immune systems are at increased risk of severe illness from COVID-19, and employers have a duty to identify and protect them. And finally, due to stresses caused by the pandemic like financial stress and grief, employees should have access to a round-the-clock COVID-19 support line manned by trained counselors and psychologists.
They also need to follow the rules and the regulations that are set out for COVID-19 and adhere to them as the employees. But if the employer is not also having these measures in place, the employee has the responsibility to report the employer if they're not adherent to these measures, because these measures are there to protect them.
Learning in many African countries has resumed after schools reopen in January.